Nearly 690 million people are hungry, but more than 33% of all the food that's produced on our planet never reaches a table. But there is one organization in our country that works to combat hunger by reducing food wastage at the same time. And that is our second episode, the Robin Hood Army Sri Lankan chapter. This is the Wannabe Jac podcast, where we listen to stories that revolutionize our nation as we speak. Speaking with us in this episode is not one but two volunteers from RHA Sri Lanka who get the surplus food from restaurants and give it to the less fortunate sections in society in order to make food consistently available to serve the hungry citizen.
Hello Zam, hello Pratibha.
Hi.
Hi, Jack.
So let's get straight to the facts. So the first thing that I came across was the name, the Robin Hood Army. So when I came across the name, the first thing that jumped into my head was the character Robin Hood. So we know that Robin Hood is this legendary folklore historic outlaw who was pretty much characterized by robbing the rich to pay the poor. So since you proclaim yourselves as the army of Robin Hood, do you actually rob the rich to pay the poor? What is the Robin Hood Army actually, and why the name?
Well, Jack, the Robin Hood Army is a zero funds volunteer organization that works to get surplus foods from restaurants and communities to serve the less fortunate. The Robins are largely students and young working professionals. Everyone does this in their free time. The lesser fortunate sections of the society include the homeless families, orphanages, patients from public hospitals, and the elders' homes. So I joined the Robin Hood Army since 2019. Ever since, we have been making progress of reaching out to new communities and helping them out.
Right, it's very interesting. And since you've joined in 2019, it begs me to ask the question, is the Robin Hood Army a local organization or a global organization? Is it restricted to Sri Lanka or is it a bigger thing?
Yes, we are a global organization. We coordinate with other organizations and come up with ideas to implement projects in our own local chapters.
Okay, so how did the Robin Hood Army's Sri Lankan chapter originate? How did it come to be? What's the story behind that?
Well, Jack, the Robin Hood Army, the model that it was introduced to Sri Lanka by Hansala and his friends. The initial drives happened at 2016, every Saturday, by partnering up with local NGOs who handed over 150 to 200 parcels every weekend. These were day drives happening every weekend. So the parcels were delivered in many slum areas around Colombo. As I've heard, it was a fun and learning experience for everyone who was involved. Then we initiated to reach out to the restaurants. Then it took a bit of time for our team members to convince our restaurant partners about the concept of taking surplus food and giving it to the less fortunate. However, we were able to manage to bring out to partner up with Royal Bakery and Pan Pan since 2018, and ever since we started our night drives.
Right, Royal Bakery and Pan Pan, two of the best restaurants and bakeries that even I've tasted food from. Awesome. So the next interesting question, you mentioned this partnering up with restaurants, but such an idea, any idea which is innovative and new, there is this adage or a saying that local folks say that whenever something is introduced new to the world, it takes around 15 years to come to Sri Lanka, mainly because most of our folk are kind of ignorant or lazy to get to the task. So the question is, when Robin Hood Army was brought to Sri Lanka, what were the specific challenges that you faced? How was starting off things like when it came to Robin Hood Army's Sri Lankan chapter?
Well, to this date, what we've been doing is honestly coordinating and participating for daily night drives. But initially it was Hansala and his friends that took on all the challenges that was there from the beginning. So, well, currently, since we've been doing the daily night drives, and also we've been doing day drives as well. So, more than the challenges, it's really about how fulfilling it is really to see a smiling face at night when we give them food. And also sometimes they be like, the past few days we've been waiting for y'all, so kind of thing. So it's mostly the positives that we feel that was in Robin Hood Army.
Right, that's quite inspiring because back in 2020, the Nobel Peace Prize was won by the World Food Program. And you might be wondering, what does food have to do with peace? But the reason was stated that something as simple as hunger can be used as a weapon of war. So trying to maintain peace by not letting people suffer through hunger and actually getting the satisfaction to actually serve humanity in such an aspect is truly inspiring. That's great. And since then, since Hansel and his team had started off Robin Hood Army's Sri Lankan chapter, how has the journey been thus far to date? What has become of RHA Sri Lanka?
Well, Jack, so far our achievements I would say since the beginning, we had fed over 70 million people around the world and over 132,000 people in Sri Lanka alone. I must mention that if it was not for our volunteers, all of this would be impossible. We have partnered up with more outlets and we have also taken over certain corporate CSR projects as well.
Right. It's interesting. Well, which brings me to the question. You spoke about volunteering and your daily night drive. So simply said, let's say working in the night is actually a prime aspect of RHA Sri Lanka. So taking Sri Lanka to be a conservative society, and most parents do impose curfew on people to not go out in the night. What are the personal challenges when it comes to home affairs, your parents not allowing you to go at night, or social challenges where, let's say, our people are mostly masked by fear, right? So whenever you go and hand food to someone without context, people tend to fear to get that. So such challenges, personally and socially, what challenges did you face and how did you overcome those challenges?
It's really difficult, like for some volunteers to come at night, but then most volunteers are working. Easier for them to join for night drives. So for them, for the others who find it difficult to join for night drives, we also have day drives, which happen once a month kind of, and we also have volunteer meetups as well. So that compensates for everyone who can't join the night drives. And currently the biggest challenge we have is the pandemic. So we want to keep our night drives as consistent as possible, because otherwise it will be unfair by the restaurants, because they'll be discarding their food. So because of the pandemic, it's difficult to have, because we'll be having lockdowns as well, because we have to make sure the volunteers are safe as well as people receiving it. So at the end of the day, they have to go back to their friends and family members. So these days are kind of rough, but otherwise it's kind of all right.
It's truly surprising and actually gratifying to see that even during the pandemic, when things have turned upside down, you still manage to get through the hardships and still keep it going. And that's a great thing. And most importantly, you mentioned two things about RHA, and that is zero funds and free service volunteering. And whenever you take any organization, when it comes to sustainably holding it in place, these two things don't actually work well in hand, right? Because there is a lot of uncertainty, because you have no funds coming in, and since it's free service volunteering, anyone can back out at any time, and there might be instances where no one has volunteered as well. So how are you actually sustaining this, whilst you have the two biggest risks that actually could end up in having a big challenge in sustaining RHA Sri Lanka? How do you do it?
Well, Jack, it's basically simple. It's with the inner drive with our volunteers, that is the sole purpose of making the night drives consistent. However, if we are unable to get a volunteer for a night drive, we inform the restaurants and say we are unable to send someone to collect it. So it's because of this pandemic, these problems start to arise because people are afraid to go out because of the restrictions, and at the same time, because of the severity of the virus, they are also uncertain that they might also catch it as well. So otherwise, if things were peaceful, we used to have our night drives very consistent, and every day we might sometimes even come across volunteers who organize a ladies' night where a group of ladies volunteer once a week and participate for a night drive, and they do a huge amount of food parcels in one night.
Okay, that's truly great. Having a ladies' night, wow, that it deserves a shout out because your services have actually helped in revolutionizing our country. And finally, certain social media informants of mine tell me that there are other projects that you're involved in, certain community service projects apart from collecting surplus foods and distributing it to the people who need it. So when it comes to community service projects, obviously you need funds, you need money to do it. So if you are doing such events, what are these other community service projects and where are you getting your funds?
Well, we also do certain community projects because our mission is to contribute to the community. So we wanted to expand our horizons than just distributing food at night to people. So what we do is we do a few day drives that we started one last January, which was where we planted over 100 trees along with collaboration with the CEB office. It was at Pattaramulla.
Wow.
So it is not really money that drives us, it is the volunteers and their time. So honestly, we don't really require that kind, it is the volunteers that make us keep going. So we kind of expand it outwards than the night drives.
Okay, that's truly inspiring because when I listen to your story, what always comes into my mind is that whenever people imagine to do big things, they think big, but then when they start acting, they act less. But as far as the Robin Hood Army is concerned, more than thinking big, you act more, and your actions have really helped shape the future of our country. And such a turn can actually be revolutionizing with time. So that being said, I have this curious question to ask. So the food that you collect from all these restaurants, these are big restaurants, needless to say, you're getting free food in good state, they are fresh. How do you resist from not consuming yourself before giving it to the people who need it? I need to know this.
The fact that sometimes it itches our mind, so much good food being thrown to waste. So however, if we take something from that is being meant to be distributed, it actually hits us by giving us the thought that it might reduce, someone else might not be able to eat, get that meal for that night. So by keeping that in mind, we try to resist the urge of taking a portion for ourselves.
A very big salute to that commitment because that is great. That is great because thinking that very conscious thought itself can resist people from doing a lot of things. That's true. That's very much true.
It is these undying efforts made by people like Pratibha and Uzam, even amidst the pandemic, that lays the foundation towards achieving a more sustainable nation by alleviating hunger, or as the UN would like to call it, achieving zero hunger. And what's fascinating is the fact that these people come up with integrated solutions, where the solution to one problem is also the solution to another. For instance, who would have even guessed that the solution to food wastage would ultimately end up as a solution towards food disparity in many countries, including Sri Lanka. So if you're interested towards achieving the global sustainable goal of zero hunger, they said it loud and clear, and I wouldn't mind saying it again. Go to robinhoodarmy.com today and register under the Colombo chapter. And that brings us to the end of our second episode. This is Wannabe Jac signing off. Until next time. Tat Parivartanam Bhava, stay safe and help to achieve zero hunger.